At the beginning of the current public health crisis, by the end of March 2020, after the beginning of the lockdowns and stay-at-home orders, according to Pew Research Center, more than half of all U.S. adults, 55%, said they had prayed for an end to the spread of coronavirus. Large majorities of Americans who pray daily, 86%, and of U.S. Christians, 73%, had taken to prayer during the outbreak at the beginning. But so had some who said they seldom or never prayed, and people who said they did not belong to any religion, 15% and 24% respectively. And, at least according to the Data Institute at the University of San Francisco, pandemics are historically associated with fear, confusion, and despair. And in those moments when hope appears lost, even Reverend Martin Luther King, who sat in a Birmingham jail cell, noted that for him was a time of writing long letters, thinking strange thoughts, and praying long prayers. But at least according to the president today, the pandemic is over. Hello, my name is Major Mike Webb, a preacher's kid, and I am running for state delegate in the 49th District of Virginia, currently represented by Democrat Alfonso Lopez. But at one point in my life, I had been assigned to a Ranger regiment living the life of an airborne ranger. General Stanley McChrystal had served twice as a commander in the 75th Ranger Regiment, first at Alpha Company, 3rd Battalion, down at Fort Benning, Georgia, while I was still in college in the Shenandoah, and then as commander for 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment at Fort Lewis, Washington, not long after I had departed, to go on to Officer Candidate School in Strategic Counterintelligence. And he had developed 2 questions to prepare himself as a leader, a lesson that he had passed on to others. First, what must my organization do and be? What is the mission focus? What has to be accomplished? What is the priority and purpose of that organization in that time? The great existential question, why are we here? And second, after that question has generated a sufficient answer in clearly quantifiable terms, defining the desired end state for the commander's intent, the next question for a commander should be, according to General McChrystal, how can I best command to fulfill that purpose and complete that mission? On May 18, 2021, just 2 months after the first anniversary of the pandemic, and the announcement of the American Rescue Plan, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, the World Health Organization's Director General, had warned that the coronavirus pandemic is a long way far from over, as he appealed for more funding for the agency's response plan, expressing concern that there appeared to be a mindset that the pandemic was over in countries with high vaccination rates, but warned that no one is safe until we are all safe. On January 18, 2022, with the recent emergence of the Omicron variant in South Africa the prior November, which had begun to spread even to the United States and displace the Delta variant by December 2021, again, the World Health Organization had warned that the COVID-19 pandemic is far from over, expressing alarm that the Omicron variant spreads faster than any other COVID variant and had continued to overwhelm the healthcare system of some countries. The WHO director boldly predicted, with 18 million cases reported worldwide, and with Europe becoming the epicenter of new alarming outbreaks, cases soaring past 100,000 per day in Germany, and France reporting nearly 500,000 cases on the prior day. The Omicron could infect half of all Europeans by March, filling hospitals across the continent. That was his prediction in January from March 2021, the anniversary of the pandemic. Yet, like his forecast at the beginning of the public health crisis that Africa would face death tolls in the millions, that prediction did not come to pass. On September 14th, 2022, Dr. Maria van Kerkhove, the technical lead on COVID-19 at the World Health Organization, had stated that the virus is still intensely circulating around the world and that the agency believes the case numbers being reported are an underestimate and that they expect that there are going to be future waves of infection, potentially at different time points throughout the world, caused by different subvariants of Omicron or even different variants of concern. However, she said, these future waves do not need to translate into waves of death because there are now effective tools such as vaccines and antivirals specifically for COVID-19. That was September 14th. According to the president, during a recent interview not long after on September 19th, 2022, while attending the Detroit Auto Show, the pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work on it, but the pandemic is over, according to the president, on September 19th, 2022. On September 28th, however, the Circuit Court for Chesterfield County, Virginia, just across the river from Richmond, had certified to the Chief Justice for the Supreme Court of Virginia the very first pandemic-related homicide case in history for the purposes of nominating an impartial judge for a grand jury investigation concerning the death of Bishop Gerald Glenn, the former senior pastor for the New Deliverance Evangelistic Church and one of approximately 30 Pentecostal bishops who had contracted COVID-19 and died before the first Easter during the pandemic. On October 4th, 2022, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the president's top medical advisor, soon to retire, had stated that we should anticipate that we very well may get another variant that would emerge that would elude the immune response that we've gotten from infection and or from vaccination. And just as he predicted on October 19th, 2022, Dr. Fauci had stated that both BQ1 and BQ1.1 have qualities or characteristics that could evade some of the interventions we now have. And he continued, when you get variants like that, you look at what their rate of increase is as a relative proportion of the variants, and this has a very troublesome doubling time, according to Dr. Fauci. According to Dr. Thomas Russo, a professor and chief of infectious disease at the University of Buffalo in New York, BQ1 and BQ1.1 subvariants of the Omicron variant BA5, which currently make up 68% of the COVID-19 cases in the country, was something of concern. However, on October 17th, 2022, Dr. Fauci said the strains have a concerning doubling time, referring to how quickly they spread. The UK Health Security Agency reported earlier that month that the strains even demonstrate a growth advantage over BA5, which was considered the most contagious COVID strain to date. On that same day, the City Court for Ithaca, New York, had acknowledged receipt of an accusatory document regarding allegations related to the infections outbreaks that had been reported by Cornell University that had appeared not to be indications of an infectious disease being transmitted from person to person, but rather the deployment of a biological agent of terror, which had presented only on the depopulated campus with no wider community spread into the surrounding counties. Yet as of October 28, 2022, the subvariants BQ1 and BQ1.1 now represent 27% of infections in the U.S., a significant jump from the week prior when they made up 16% of new cases, according to the CDC. Omicron BA.5, though still the dominant variant, is diminishing every week. And on October 24, 2022, the U.S. District Court in Richmond granted permission for an action to proceed against Jimmy Kimmel, the late-night talk show host, in allegations under the federal racketeering statute related to the current public health crisis. And on October 29, 2022, a complaint was filed with the police chief for Provincetown, Massachusetts, regarding the CDC report on the breakthrough infections outbreak during which over 1,000 fully vaccinated gay men were reported to have experienced the first large-scale breakthrough infections in what had been described as a super spreader event. A super spreader event that could not have possibly occurred according to the currently known secondary attack rate for the Delta variant, or even the current Omicron variant, falling well below 60%. And, according to the CDC reports, blamed upon only one still unknown person who had managed to attend several events causing outbreaks that had occurred in no other locations in Provincetown or throughout the state, the signature sign of a biological agent being deployed because a highly contagious disease would have created a splatter pattern, not isolated outbreaks that could be identified definitively, as was found in several locations in Provincetown. On September 22, 2022, a peer-reviewed report that had been published in the Vaccines Journal had found that there is a 16% chance of serious adverse events associated with the mRNA vaccines products, and up to 33% with the one-shot Janssen product. Serious events that could include death, incapacity, or disability, birth defects, near-death events, or other significant medical events, contrary to assurances that the FDA-approved vaccines were safe. And the vaccines developed with no official knowledge of the infectious dose, required knowledge to determine the proper correlates of protection, could only be determined to be effective with a large sample size phase 3 clinical trial, for which apparently 80.2% of Americans, 95% of those over the age of 65 have volunteered or complied with mandates to be administered. I'm sorry, but we cannot turn back time. We are all adults, presumed to be responsible for our own actions, and sometimes we have to face those consequences. But during the crisis that had occurred aboard Apollo 13, NASA Chief Flight Director Gene Kranz made the determination that failure is not an option. Began his get well plan with a process of developing a list of everything aboard that capsule that still worked. And the military decision-making process that is taught to all military officers and senior NCOs is very similar, beginning by determining the ground truth, beginning with the facts. And what at least psychological experts suggest is that there are 5 stages of grieving, beginning with denial, which you may be experiencing now. Daddy used to say that the Lord never gives us more than we can bear, so you will have to work your way through that denial. Move on, which will probably include some anger. Proceed to bargaining, depression, and finally acceptance. It may be a good time for some prayerful reflection. And at least Reverend King had said that sometimes only when it is darkest can we see the stars. It is not the end of the world. And if you think of this as a learning experience and an opportunity for growth, building character, how you deal with this, how this nation deals with this is in your hands. And we are all adults here. And we are counting on you. God never gives you more than you can bear. Honest. This advertisement was authorized by Mike Webb.